Mark was just finishing a long shift, his body tired but his heart content as he drove through the quiet streets of his small town. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sat in the back seat, softly humming her favorite tune, a sound that always made the world feel lighter. The sky was painted with the fading light of dusk, and a cold wind began to stir as they passed the old bus stop on Main Street. That's when Mark saw her. A young woman, barely in her 20s, sat alone on the bench. Her army uniform was damp from the drizzle, her duffel bag resting heavily at her feet. Her eyes were hollow, fixed on some far-off place, and her posture carried a quiet kind of pain, the kind Mark knew too well. It hit him like a punch in the chest. She reminded him of his younger brother, Jason, who'd joined the army straight out of high school. Jason never came home. Mark slowed down, hands tightening around the steering wheel. That soldier wasn't just a stranger. She was someone's sister, daughter, maybe even someone's mother. More than that, she was alone. Something in him stirred, maybe guilt, maybe memory, but it overpowered the usual instinct to keep driving. She looked like she'd seen more than her share of storms, inside and out, he thought, heart heavy. He glanced at Lily in the rearview mirror, her innocence a stark contrast to the weight that woman carried. He pulled the truck over without fully understanding why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was fate. But something told him, this moment mattered. And sometimes, the greatest acts of love don't come with a plan. They start with a single decision, to not look away. Mark's boots crunched against the wet gravel as he stepped out into the cold. His breath fogged in the evening air, nerves fluttering in his chest. He wasn't the kind of man to interfere, but something about that soldier sitting alone struck too close to home. She didn't just look tired, she looked defeated. Not from war, but from life. He approached slowly, hands out of his pockets to show he meant no harm. "Hey," he said gently, "I don't mean to intrude, but it's freezing. You don't need to be alone tonight. You're coming with me." The soldier looked up, startled. Her face was young, but her eyes looked older than they should. She blinked, guarded, clearly used to turning down help. "I have nowhere to go. My flight got delayed. No family close." "I'll be fine," she said, voice low, almost rehearsed. Mark didn't press. He understood pride. He understood silence. But then, a little voice cut through the air. "Dad makes the best grilled cheese in town." Lily shouted from the truck, her face poking out the window with the kind of joy only kids can carry. For a second, the soldier's defenses cracked. Her mouth curled, almost against her will, into the smallest laugh. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Her first in days. Mark smiled. One meal. One warm place. That's all. She looked down at her boots, then up at the little girl beaming at her like she was a hero out of a bedtime story. "Okay," she whispered. Mark held the passenger door open. As she stepped inside, something invisible shifted in the air, like hope had just found a crack in her armor. Mark's kitchen was nothing fancy, faded linoleum floors, mismatched chairs, and an old fridge that hummed louder than it should. But it radiated warmth, the kind you can't buy. The scent of grilled cheese filled the air as Lily cheerfully placed napkins around the small table, taking her self-appointed job very seriously. Private First Class Elena Reyes sat quietly, hands folded in her lap. Her uniform jacket hung on the back of the chair, a rare moment of letting her guard down. She still hadn't shared much, just her name and that she'd recently returned stateside. But Mark didn't ask. He'd learned long ago that some stories come out when they're ready, and others, maybe never. During dinner, Elena jumped slightly when Lily dropped a fork. Her eyes flicked around, shoulders tense. A moment later, she zoned out mid-sentence, staring at nothing. Mark noticed, but said nothing. Lily just kept talking about school, cartoons, and her favorite stuffed dinosaur. After dinner, Mark pulled out an old board game and set it on the table. House rule: Lily always cheats by accident, he warned with a smile. Elena chuckled softly. She played, hesitantly at first, then with more ease. She laughed when Lily tried to sneak extra turns. It wasn't the loud, careless laughter of someone carefree. It was something deeper, relief, maybe. A crack in the armor. Later that night, as Lily slept on the couch, curled up under a blanket, Elena sipped tea at the kitchen counter. "It's been months since I've laughed," she whispered, voice barely audible. Mark didn't say much, just nodded, then slid a cookie toward her. In that simple kitchen, surrounded by quiet kindness, Elena felt something she hadn't in a long time: safe. Not just physically, but emotionally. The house was silent, wrapped in the deep stillness of 3 a.m. But Elena jolted awake, drenched in sweat, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The shadows in the room stretched long, unfamiliar. She sat up on the edge of the guest bed, fists clenched, chest heaving. The nightmare still clung to her skin. She wandered into the kitchen, the only light coming from the fridge humming in the corner. She sat at the table, trembling, eyes fixed on nothing. Then the tears came, quiet, steady, like a faucet left barely running. Mark appeared in the doorway, drawn by the soft creak of floorboards and something deeper, a father's instinct. He said nothing at first, just stood there, watching a brave woman unravel in silence. After a moment, he walked over and sat across from her, arms resting on the table. No questions. No pressure. Elena wiped her face with the back of her sleeve, but her voice cracked as she finally spoke. "I lost someone over there," she whispered. He saved me. We were supposed to come home together." Her voice broke. "I came back to an empty apartment. No one called. No one was waiting. I didn't know where to go tonight. Honestly. I wasn't sure I even wanted to be here." The silence that followed was heavy, but not empty. Mark leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "You don't have to fight this alone. Not here. Not in this house." His words didn't fix everything, but they reached something in her that had been buried deep. For the first time in a long while, Elena didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. And in that small kitchen, under a flickering light, two strangers shared a moment of unspoken healing. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window the next morning, casting a warm glow over the little table where pancakes sizzled and laughter floated easily. The heaviness of the night before had lifted, replaced by something gentler, like peace trying to find its way in. Elena sat at the table with Lily, helping her tie her shoelaces, clumsily at first, then with practiced care. Her smile was easier now, no longer something she had to force. Mark watched from the stove, flipping pancakes, quietly grateful for the light returning to her eyes. They ate together like a family, not one bound by blood, but by something just as real: kindness. Comfort. Understanding. Later, as Mark drove Elena back to the base, the world outside blurred past the window. She stared out, hands resting on her lap, quiet for a while. Then, her voice broke the silence. "Thank you, for treating me like a person. Not a project. I didn't know strangers could feel like family." Mark kept his eyes on the road but smiled softly. "We're all just walking each other home in this life, Elena." She didn't respond right away. But when the truck stopped at the base gate, she turned to him and Lily. Her posture straightened, and with tears shining in her eyes, she saluted, not as a soldier to a superior, but as a woman honoring something sacred. Then she stepped out, not just onto a military base, but into a new chapter. She still had battles ahead, but now, she didn't feel alone in them. And as Mark and Lily drove away, Elena stood for a moment longer, one hand resting on her heart. For the first time in a long while, she believed in second chances. In a world that often moves too fast to notice the quiet battles others are fighting, one man's simple act of compassion changed everything. Mark didn't have much, just a warm meal, a small home, and a kind heart, but that was enough to remind a broken soldier that she still mattered. What began as a chance encounter at a cold bus stop became something far deeper, a moment of connection, of healing, of unexpected family. Through shared silence, laughter, and late-night honesty, Elena found not just shelter, but hope. And Mark, still grieving his own brother, found a way to honor his memory not through words, but through action. This story reminds us that kindness doesn't need a reason. That we don't need to fix someone's pain to help carry it. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can offer is a seat at the table, a listening ear, or a simple, heartfelt invitation, "You're coming with me." Because at the end of the day, we're all just walking each other home.